can you believe that it's already been a quarter of a century since the PlayStation 2 was released? I still remember unboxing my fat PS2 on a Christmas morning many years ago, and I have a lot of great memories with the console. Unsurprisingly, time's taken its toll on these consoles, and you don't have to look far to find faulty PS2s for sale in bulk. The console I have here isn't my original console, but it is the same model, the SCPH-5003 model, which was the last of the fat models produced. Looks like the warranty seal's already been broken, so maybe someone's already had a go trying to fix this. Speaking of which, I don't think I've actually explained what's wrong with this console yet, but when you see it, it's pretty self-explanatory, so I'll get it plugged in and then we can take a look. So the console's turned on, now let's try and put a disc in. Did you hear that? Yep, it's that common issue with these consoles where the disc tray refuses to open, or at least it refuses to open unless you give it a helping hand. You can see it does open if I try and give it a hand, but no one wants to be doing this every time they want to insert a game into their console. Anyway, I think we've seen enough of that now, so let's get it opened up and see if we can fix it. There are 8 screws holding the two halves of the shell together, and each of these is hidden by a screw cover. You'll need to remove all of these to gain access to the screws below. 4 of these covers are thicker and act as feet for the console when it's laid horizontally, and the other 4 sit flush with the console surface. Unlike some other consoles, you're not going to need any fancy screwdrivers to get these screws out, as all of the screws are Phillips head. Be sure to keep track of where these screws were removed from, as not all of these screws are the same size. Once the screws are out, remove the hard drive bay cover, flip the console over, and you should be able to easily remove the top half of the shell. With the top cover removed, you've now got direct access to the disk drive. To gain access to the inside of the drive, you'll need to remove the 2 small Phillips head screws, which help to keep this cover in place. Once the screws have been removed, you'll find that it's still difficult to remove this top cover, and that's because there are also clips holding it in place. Using a bit of force should be enough to remove this top cover. At this point, keep in mind that the laser is now exposed. If you have the console powered on at any point with this lid removed, take adequate precautions to protect your eyes from the laser. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to power the console on, open the tray with a button and just see if it will actually open. Again, a reminder that while doing this, the laser is exposed, so you won't see them on camera, but I'm going to be wearing some protective glasses while doing this. I don't think the camera's going to mind that my laser's pointing pretty much directly at it. It's easy to then just pull this tray out entirely to gain access to the mechanism underneath. There are a few things that you can do to try and fix this issue. What I've had success with doing in the past is replacing the belt, which opens the tray. And to access this, you need to remove the cover, which is held in place by a single screw. This is the belt that I'm going to be replacing, and you can find replacement parts quite easily online. It's also a good idea just to add a bit of lubricant in here while you're at it, and make sure that the area is clean. Here's the replacement that I'm going to be installing, and I'm just going to get the original one out and then we can take a look at them side by side. When you're removing the original, don't worry if this part comes out, as it's easy to fit back in position later on. Visually the two look very similar, but the new one hasn't had over 20 years of use. So hopefully it's going to grip a little bit tighter and do a better job of opening the tray. Installing the new belt should be quite straightforward, just make sure that it's not twisted. Once it's on, I like to just spin it by hand and make sure that everything's moving correctly. In this case, everything looks good. So now I'm going to put the cover back on, put the screw back in, and partially reassemble the drive so that I can test it out. Reinstalling this tray can actually be a little bit fiddly, because you have to make sure to move this white piece inwards slightly, because the channel on the other side of the tray that the edge of this white piece should slot into is slightly inset from the outside of the tray, so you need to move it just slightly to make sure that the raised part on the end slides into the channel. I also put the lid and front bezel back on the drive before testing. So I've got the drive back together now, so all that's left to do is to plug it in, turn it on, and see if the tray now opens. The console's turned on, and yep, there we go. But it's worked first time, but let's try it a few more times just to make sure that wasn't just a fluke. I think we've done enough testing now to say that this console's drive tray is now working correctly. So all that's left for me to do now is put the top shell back on and fully reassemble the console. From this point, reassembly is quite literally just putting the shell back on, putting those 8 screws back in, and then reinserting the covers. So while we watch this console being reassembled, I just wanted to mention a few other things that you can do if your tray still isn't opening properly after changing the belt. An easy thing you can try is just adding some lubricant to the moving parts around the tray. While I've never had to do this myself, it can't hurt to ensure that things can run as smoothly as possible. Another potential cause of this is that the motor that opens the tray is simply not strong enough anymore. These are over 20 years old after all. Again, I've never had to do this myself, but in that case, getting a new replacement drive motor should be enough to get it working again. I've had a few consoles now where that belt has turned out to be the issue, or at the very least replacing it has got the console working properly again. So hopefully, if you come across this issue, you'll have the same result. All that's left for me to do with this console now is to give it a bit of a clean, to get it back to its former glory. I hope you like this video, thank you very much for watching, and be sure to stick around for the next one.